We are here with Adriana Moore, the fabulous designer of Batu Collections. Batu Collections is a featured designer of Pearls Go Green Eco Fashion Show. How are you today, Adriana?
I'm fine. How are you?
I am wonderful. So tell me, how did you get into fashion?
Well, my mom used to make clothes for me and my sister when we were growing up. She also loved fashion. She had immaculate taste, style, everything in fashion. So she started teaching me how to make clothes for my dolls when I was probably 5 or 6. And from that first pattern she showed me, I just kind of took off from there. So I made all my dolls' clothes, designed clothes. Then I went and took sewing lessons at the girls' club, and we used to use the old-fashioned machines where you had to pedal your feet at the bottom. Yeah, we
Okay.
used those. And then when I went to high school, I went to a vocational technical school where I majored in fashion design. From there, I went on into other jobs like a bridal salon, a couple high-end boutiques where I sewed and did alterations, stuff like that. Eventually, I joined a fashion incubator called the Wildlife Reserve in New Orleans.
Okay.
And from there is where I launched the line Batu Collection. So I've kind of been designing for that line ever since.
Wonderful. Such a rich foundation.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
you were talking to me earlier about Paris Fashion Week. So tell us,
Hmm.
how was that experience?
That was an experience. It was an amazing experience, a once in a lifetime experience, something that I never in a million years thought that I'd be doing. I always thought that I would go to see another designer in Paris Fashion Week, but never thought I would actually be one of the featured designers. So it was amazing getting to meet other designers from different parts of the world, meeting the models from all over the world. A few supermodels actually wore my clothing. I shot with them by the Eiffel Tower, the Pont Alexander the Third Bridge, did photo shoots at the Louvre. It was really, really an amazing experience. To this day, I still can't believe that I actually did that.
Wonderful. Well, I'm looking forward to going to the next one once this pandemic, clears out and we get
Yeah.
going with that again.
Hmm.
So speaking of the pandemic, our Pearls Go Green fashion show was the first time that we got out again.
Hmm.
And it was held at Piedmont Park. And when I gave you that or made that call telling you that, we're going green, was it something that you were already doing with your fashion, or was it a challenge with the collection that you presented?
Yeah, it was definitely something that I had honestly never really thought about in my design. So it was a challenge, but I wanted to take on that challenge. And not only did I want to use eco friendly fabrics, but I also wanted to be eco friendly in the sense of not purchasing anything if I didn't need to. Because as designers, we all have bolts and yards of fabric that we may not even be using or haven't even thought about. So I decided that I was going to use as much as possible what I already had in my home studio. So I used like a bolt of silk that I already had for my gown. The denim outfits that I made was actually leftover fabric from a previous look that I had made. So I made those two looks there. Batiks, cottons, which are cottons. Sometimes you think cotton boring, but it's really not because there's beautiful batiks in cotton. There's beautiful African prints
Mhm.
in cotton. So I had some of that at home. So I used a lot of that, kind of mixed up a couple things, remnants, scraps of other projects, kind of mixed those in and did my looks from there. I even had a piece of linen that was donated to me from my sister who also sews. It's a gorgeous piece of flowered vintage linen that I made a pair of the pants out of. So I just really decided that I was going to try to be as eco-friendly as possible and see if I could do it and still be true to my brand.
Wonderful. And I love this piece that you created, for our fashion show. So,
Mhm.
being that we chose this platform so that we can educate our community on
Mhm.
going green in terms of the effect that fashion has on our environment. in terms of the waste. Us only using 20 to 30% of the clothing that we buy, but we just continue to buy, opposed to learning how to repurpose what we have.
Mhm.
From a designer's perspective, if you could look into that camera, what would you tell your designer peers that maybe have not gone green? What could you tell them?
Well, I would say start off slow, like I did. I used cottons and batiks, very colorful, beautiful cottons and batiks, and I lined a lot of my clothing with that instead of using I like to use taffetas and silks and different things like that for my linings. But just using something simple but still beautiful, like a printed cotton or batik or what have you. Also, repurposing things that you already have. If you have designs that you've already made that maybe you haven't been able to sell yet, that you're still holding on to, repurpose those. That. Also, for me, I personally like timeless clothing. So I try to design things that are well made and the style or the design is something timeless. Because if you're going to spend that kind of money, you should be able to wear that design for years and years to come, not just for a season.
And before we close out, I have to give a shout out to Jennifer Sutton of Art Mezzo. This is where I first saw Adriana Moore in her collection. So shout out to you, Jennifer, and shout out and honor to you for your artistic creativity. And thank you so much for being a part of Pearls Go Green Eco Fashion Show.
Oh, thanks for having me.